Hey everyone, appreciate you tuning in to our Facebook Live. This is, I don't know, we've done this 2 or 3 times now, and we wanted to take this opportunity to just tell you a little bit more about me personally, kind of some of my history, some of my background, and then talk a little bit about what I want to do as your next Attorney General. Um, Again, I'm Jesse Gibson, running for Attorney General here in Arkansas. I want to tell you a little bit about where I'm from, because I think that's really important to learn a little bit about my background and my fitness and suitability to be your new AG. I was born in Harrison, Arkansas, grew up in a little town called Lead Hill on the banks of Bull Shoals Lake. Grew up on a dead-end dirt road. Didn't have any neighbors. Didn't have any neighbors anywhere close to where we lived. It's just my brother and my mom and dad. So we grew up in a great place, a very small population, 274. We used to always joke that we lived so far out in the country that you had to go towards town to deer hunt, but it was a good place to grow up. We spent a lot of time on the lake, fishing, swimming, just hanging out with friends, and really just spending time with my brother more than anything, just spending time in the woods. But went to school there in Lead Hill, graduated high school in 1992. I think we had 27 in my graduating class, so it was a pretty small class. We knew each other from the time we were in kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. Most of us went through all 13 years of school together all those years, and we're great friends. But we didn't have a lot growing up. My parents were teachers, and so oftentimes we didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. We didn't have air conditioning in my house until I was about 7 or 8. But we did have an outhouse out back, so that was nice. All the amenities of modern living in rural Arkansas. So, but mom and dad being teachers, they really stressed how important it was for me, my brother and I, to do well in school, and we did, and earned a scholarship to the University of Arkansas, where I attended from 1992 to 1996, and got a bachelor's degree in economics, the dismal science. And realized that I wanted to do something more out of my career than just entering the workforce. And I realized that I wanted to try to go to law school. So I went to law school starting in 1996 at the Bowen School of Law down here in Little Rock. And I was on law review and had a lot of great experience in law school. And I realized at that point it was something that was a calling for me, something that I wanted to do to try to help folks. And when I got out of law school in 1999, passed the bar. Good luck to all you folks that get your bar results perhaps this week. I know it's a stressful time. I've been there, and you'll never know more law than you know right now. Trust me, you'll spend the next couple decades forgetting all the stuff that you studied. But passed the bar in 1999 and went to work at a big law firm here in Little Rock. And it didn't take long for me to realize that I absolutely hated it. I absolutely hated everything I was doing. I was working for big businesses, corporations, insurance companies, and I found it to be very, not just lacking fulfillment, but I just didn't find it a good match at all. And so in 2002, I went out on my own and I started my own law firm. And it's there that I realized the abilities that I had and the ways that I could help people all across this state. And the reason I think I connected so well in that framework is that I was able to sit across the table from people who've suffered loss of a loved one or a family member who maybe had been injured or had a business problem they just couldn't solve. And it gave me great fulfillment to help them find solutions to their problems, and to sometimes be an advocate, sometimes just to be an ear, a listener, someone to listen to their problems and help them in any way that I could. And it was through those almost 25 years of law practice that made me want to serve my state as Attorney General. And that's because that legal training has taught me that there's no better, more fulfilling personal way than assisting people who need help. And in a state of 3 million people, we have plenty of needs, people who need help and assistance in their everyday lives. And that's what I want to do as your Attorney General, is to utilize my nearly quarter century of experience to help folks in our state. Now, a little bit about me that you might not know. I'm married to my lovely wife, Amanda, and have two children, Jack and Jude. Jude just turned 10 years old this Saturday. So happy birthday to Jude. And Jack will be 14 in about a month. They're great kids. Both of them attend school here in the Little Rock School District. They're great. They're great kids, and I'm very proud of them. My wife is also a very wonderful and very patient woman dealing with me. I appreciate her so much. We're active in our church here in Little Rock, and I've gotten involved in a couple things with my kids and my wife. In our church, we've started some food missions around the holidays where we feed the homeless, and we also raise money for our food pantry at our church. And we do that every year by auctioning pies. You've probably seen this on our website. But it's something that we feel very passionately about. It's something that it's been important to my kids. And the way it started, and just kind of interesting note about both my family and some of our activities. We were coming home from Sam's one time, and there was someone at the exit asking for spare change. And I always give them, whatever I have in my ashtray. And my son asked what they were doing. He was just very curious about why people would be doing that. And we had a really good talk about, feel blessed about what we have and be thankful, but always to remember to help those who need it, and to help those who might need a hand every now and then. And it was one of those kind of cool experiences as a dad, talking about our blessings and our requirement almost to use those blessings to help others that may not be as fortunate. And it morphed into something where we help people who need food and the food insecure around Central Arkansas. But anyway, those are some of the things that we do as a family. I like to go hiking, like to go canoeing, like to play golf, and I like to play the guitar. And so if we get good response, maybe I'll play some guitar on one of these Facebook Lives for your listening pleasure. Anyway, that's a little bit about me personally, kind of where I'm from, small town Arkansas. I'm not a creature of Washington. I am just a regular guy like most of y'all. Grew up in Arkansas my whole life, attended school in Arkansas my entire life, and I've always lived here, always practiced here, and I don't intend on ever leaving. So I entered this race for Attorney General really for one reason, and one reason only, and I want to be the people's lawyer. That's it. I am not a professional politician just looking for the next office. I'm not a professional politician that's just looking to jump from job to job just so I can stay in government. This is the job that I've trained for my entire life. Like I said, lived here my whole life, practiced law in all 75 counties. So what I want to talk to you a little bit now, since I've done a little bit of introduction, is kind of some issues that I think are really important for the Attorney General's office. Now, the first thing, people always ask me on the campaign trail, when I'm in person, when I'm out traveling, or on Facebook, social media, people always ask me, what does the Attorney General really do? And that would take an entire Facebook Live because there's so many divisions and different facets of the Attorney General's office. But I usually try to put it in three pigeonholes. And the first being, you handle criminal appeals. Second being, you represent the state. And the third thing is you represent the people of the state of Arkansas. And I know that in so doing, that one of the overarching themes and important tasks and duties of the Attorney General's office has to deal with both crime and public safety. Now, every parent, every person in the state of Arkansas wants to raise their kids in a safe place. You want to be safe from crime. You want to be safe from racial profiling, safe from violence. You want to have safe neighborhoods. And I do understand that there are bad people out there. There are dangerous people out there. And as your Attorney General, I vow to always do everything I can to get those bad actors off of our streets. Because there's nothing, you can't go about your daily life, you go to work, go to school, without living in a safe environment for your children and your family. But I understand that crime prevention is not an all-in antidote to all of the problems. You can't arrest your way into a safe neighborhood. You have to have solutions that help with the real underlying root causes of crime and violence. We need solutions that would divert would-be criminals from bad decisions that can set them up for failure in a life of violence and crime. We have to work on our recidivism problem. The Arkansas Department of Corrections has really requested help to cut down on our problem we have of reoffenders going into the Department of Corrections, coming out, and then going right back in again. In the Southeast, our recidivism rate is head and shoulders above any other state. And that's a problem that we can either arrest or build our way out of by building new jails. So as your AG, I'll work with local law enforcement to address the root causes of crime. And it's not a one-size-fits-all problem, so it doesn't mandate a one-size-fits-all solution. I'd like to work with and create special social work positions within the Attorney General's office to focus not only on the crime prevention and law enforcement, but also to realize that it takes oftentimes to de-escalate situations or to train people a certain way in emotional or mental health emergencies to avoid any kind of conflict, whether it's it turns violent or not. You need some training to provide these law enforcement officials with all the tools that they need so that we avoid any kind of armed conflict or violence. Now, I think that's real important. I think that training program and staff people at the AG's office to go out to local law enforcement is really important to give them that training. Now, they always say that elections are about contrasts, right? Differences between candidates. They say, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to my opponent. With my opponent, you'll get more of the same. With him as Attorney General, you can expect further militarization of the police, no funding for anti-drug or gun violence prevention programs, or certainly no movement to protect women. When he was in Congress, my opponent voted consistently against funding to combat domestic violence. Now, law enforcement is extremely important as the Attorney General, and we often hear calls of defund the police. I don't believe in that at all. I believe in properly funding, training, and doing everything that the police across our state, everything that they need to do their very difficult and dangerous job. Now, when people say these things to me, these terms, defund the police, that's also another area of contrast between my opponent and I. When my opponent was in Congress, he voted again and again and again to defund the police by defunding local sheriff's offices across our state. Those votes are the true defunding of the police. My opponent has voted again and again to defund the police. I won't do that as Attorney General. I'll always stand shoulder to shoulder with law enforcement. Now, there's a couple other things that are very important, not just about crime and public safety, but also some kind of pocketbook issues, because no matter where we go, these always pop up. There's a couple things that always seem to come up when you're talking about representing the people of this state and representing the people's interests. And that often includes very vulnerable communities. It often involves folks who can't protect themselves or stand up for themselves, and who are really looking for a champion and looking for someone to protect their interests as Attorney General. That often includes women and expectant mothers and children. I'll always, as Attorney General, work to my best of my ability to stand up and safeguard and protect the most vulnerable among us: women, children, expectant mothers. Again, an area of contrast. My opponent, when he was in Congress, voted, as a creature of Washington often does, for political purposes, against funding for the Women, Infants, and Children program. We also know that as WIC. What does WIC do? WIC provides services to expectant mothers and food supplies for young children. And my opponent voted again and again to cut funding for WIC. And that has a direct impact on families across this state. Unfortunately, if my opponent's elected, it would be more of the same. More of protecting special interests, more of protecting special interest groups, lobbying firms, rather than the people of this state who really, really so desperately need it. In addition to these vulnerable groups, I think it's important to protect seniors. We'll be in Hot Springs Village tomorrow talking about issues involving prescription drugs, price gouging, issues that affect seniors every single day. That means fighting for certain programs that seniors come to rely on in their everyday life. Things like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, programs that they rely on for their day-to-day needs, as far as health care, as far as their everyday living expenses. Some kind of these programs that they come to rely on and have become sort of the social contract with in our world, our country. So I think another part of the contrast between my opponent and I, he has voted time and time again to privatize these extremely important and successful programs. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Voted to privatize and cut benefits under all of these programs. And also to raise the retirement age so that you have to work even longer into your golden years before you're eligible for these programs that so many rely on. I won't do that as Attorney General. I'll always protect those programs that seniors have come to rely on and that have been wildly successful. You know, it's also important to realize that in our state, you know, there's an information technology is changing on a daily basis. In fact, we're talking to you on Facebook Live. But in Arkansas, one of the things that I've always relied on as a state is agriculture. It's our state's number one business. Our farmers and farm workers need someone to have their backs and support them in all that they do. I've routinely demonstrated my commitment to the agricultural community by representing farmers across our state. For instance, in the Turner Grain bankruptcy fiasco from 6 or 8 years ago, farmers were harmed by the wrongful actions of certain people, and I worked with those farmers in attempts to help them get out of those solutions in that bankruptcy. My opponent, again, is more of the same. Creature of Washington voted to cut rural development and agricultural programs by $5 billion. That's billion with a B. This included cuts to ag research, commodities and conservation programs, and even furloughing inspectors to keep slaughter and processing houses open. I won't do that as Attorney General. I'll always work to protect those farmers who need our help, who need our assistance, who need our leadership. It's so important to our state. It's the biggest part of our state economy. And it's something that has been, it's not just rice. We all know we export tons and tons of rice. But it's also corn, soybeans, cotton, everything that we produce as a state. I promise that I'll always stand with farmers in our agricultural community. So you kind of lose time here. We're coming almost on 20 minutes in our Facebook Live, and I want to make sure we get to our questions. But I want to sum up my campaign and what we really stand for and why I want to be Attorney General. This has always been a campaign about three things: safety, security, and strength. Now, Arkansans deserve to live in neighborhoods that are safe, no matter your zip code, no matter your station in life, no matter your means. And our children should never live in fear. As your Attorney General, I'll use the full power of the office to protect children, to protect our seniors, to protect our families, and aggressively prosecute and pursue those who harm us, who seek to harm us, who seek to harm our children, and also law enforcement at every level to make sure that your neighborhood is safe. Safe to walk the streets, safe for your kids to play in, safe for us to go to work every day. That's something I vow as your Attorney General to always work to further public safety. Now, security. A secure Arkansas is one that defends itself and the rights of all of its citizens, whether it's a government overreach from Washington, D.C., or from our own legislature. I will defend our state constitution. As long as I'm the people's lawyer, no government entity will be able to strip away the liberties of Arkansans. Finally, strength. I believe in strength through integrity. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, as we all have. But they've always taught me something. They've taught me a lesson. They've taught me how to be better and how to do better. They guide me with those lessons every day. The most important lesson that I have learned in that context is this: I have to do right no matter if anyone's watching or not. And I expect the same from our corporate partners in this state. And I won't allow them to engage in price gouging or take advantage of us economically. I will go to bed every night sure that I have done everything that I can to serve Arkansas. I grew up in a household of teachers. The teaching and learning never stops. I've learned so much on this campaign about myself and about the needs of Arkansans and how we can be a better state. The issue is that my opponent will just give you more of the same. More of the same Washington insider politics, the same kind of policies that hurt law enforcement and that hurt our families across the state. We need change. We need someone who's actually been out there and practiced law, meeting the people where they are, helping them solve their problems where they are, not a continuation of what's going on in Washington, D.C. I'm Jesse Gibson. I really want to serve as your Attorney General. I don't look at it as a stepping stone. I don't look at it as just the next office that I hold. I want to serve as your Attorney General. I humbly ask for your support, and I humbly ask for your vote. Election is 70 days away. It is 10 weeks from tomorrow. You go to the polls and cast your ballot. I ask you for your support. I'm Jesse Gibson. I'm running for Attorney General. Thanks so much. We are going to now turn a little bit to some questions, some Q&A, and some things that have come through the chat, and both on the chat and privately. So I'm going to see what we got and answer any questions you might have. Now, you can answer any questions or put them in the chat, or you can email us. There's tons of ways to get a hold of us. So we're going to go to our first question. Okay, one question. What would Jesse do to help with online scams and fraud? Great question. It's kind of funny. I get calls from potential clients every single day that are referred to my office from the current Attorney General. And a lot of times it has to deal with online scams and swindlers. And I think the number one thing that you can do is not be so shut off. What you hear now from our Attorney General and a lot of our elected officials is that they want to demonize federal law enforcement. They want to demonize, they don't like the feds, they think they're too invasive. You're going to have to use those resources and partner with federal partners, because a lot of times these online scammers and swindlers are overseas. And so you're going to need assistance from the federal government. But I vow to always hold them accountable, to bring lawsuits if any Arkansans are harmed by online scams. They're so prevalent these days. I've spoken to people on the campaign trail who say they haven't gotten a phone call in days from anyone they know. It just says spam risk, spam risk, spam risk. It's pervasive. Everyone gets them, and it's particularly damaging to our seniors who might not always know that they're being scammed. So I vow to always go after scammers as hard as we can and to stop them in their tracks. Maybe another question? Yeah, one question is from Pine Bluff area. If I voted for you and encouraged my fan base to do the same, how would you elect? Would you elect to change Southern Arkansas, specifically Pine Bluff? Will the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff get the same attention as other Arkansas institutions? So my wife is actually from Pine Bluff. And we've spent time down in Pine Bluff during this campaign, meeting with city leaders and elected officials from the county, state, and level. So I got a strong feelings about Pine Bluff. It's a community that's been harmed in recent years economically. But yes, I think Southern Arkansas and the Delta is something that must always be cherished and protected. UAPB, that's a great university down in Pine Bluff. But yes, I would advocate for equal funding for University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. Definitely on par with all other institutions. I think without the Delta, and as far as agriculture issues and history and culture, it's something that has to be fought for and preserved. There's a lot of counties over in the southeast that have seen declining population, while other areas of the state have seen booming growth. But you cannot forget that there are people down there who need assistance. There are people down there who need a lawyer. There are people down there that need counsel. So yes, I'll always remember that the Delta is important, especially the rich culture and the agricultural interests, and help them to get everything they need to be successful.
Okay, this is the last question I think we have time for. Are you going to spend taxpayer dollars on ads to further your career like Wesley is done?
Long story short, no. I absolutely will not. I've made that promise on the campaign trail over and over again. For those who may not be aware of the question that we received, the current Attorney General is taking your tax dollars and is running ads under the auspices of there being public information projects, warnings to the public. But what they've really been are political ads. What I've done during this campaign is to vow I would not do that. And I've called upon my opponent to do the same. I've even proposed putting a complete moratorium, except for extremely emergent circumstances, that I will not run any of those sorts of public information ads 30, 60, 90 days out from any election, just to avoid any appearance of impropriety. In the law, it's not just improper actions, it's the appearance of there being impropriety. So I think that's really important, and I think it's really important for both optics and also for building trust with the people, building trust that as Attorney General, I won't use those taxpayer dollars. They're yours. They're your hard-earned dollars that shouldn't be used to further anyone's political goals. So answer, no. Great question.
Okay, one more, and then you're gonna have to.
It always goes so fast.
I know. One good question is, what are your thoughts on gun law reform?
So the thing is this, I always speak about this issue as how our politics are so disconnected and broken. Because I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm a gun owner. And most law-abiding gun owners, even people who don't own guns, they agree on certain things. There are about 5 things that poll in the 80s nationally and in Arkansas. Background checks, cutting down on gun show loopholes. There are a couple things that we can do to cut down on the number of gun-related violence and also deaths. Now, we can either do something, these common sense actions that most people, regardless of political stripe, regardless of any of that, agree on. We can do a couple things that will cut down on gun violence that are broadly popular, or we can do nothing and live in the world where there's a shooting at a county fair, as there was in Northwest Arkansas this past weekend. Doing something that is wildly popular, but our elected officials refuse to do, shows how sometimes our politics can be broken, how the will of the people sometimes gets blocked by special interests and lobbying. Let's do something. What I want to do is something that is very common sense. There's a couple of things that will cut down on gun violence. What my opponent wants to do is to do nothing. And that action, doing nothing, will put guns in the hands of violent people who would do us and law enforcement harm. So let's do those things. Let's do those things that most people agree on. You know, we all agree that those couple things, gun show loopholes, expanded background checks, all the things that we know can cut down on gun violence, we should do. So we're here already at 30 minutes, and I always try to keep these at 30 or below to be respectful of your time. But I want to say one last thing before we say goodbye. I want to thank you for taking time out of your Monday to spend some time and learn more about our campaign, about me personally. I wish I had time to answer all the questions. We'll try to get to them all. If you like what you heard today, you can go to jessegibsonforarkansas.com. There's plenty of information about me there. You can sign up for email alerts. You can sign up to volunteer, and of course, donate. I'm up against a very well-funded opponent, and every dollar counts. So if you would like what you hear and you'd like to get involved with the campaign, please go sign up, donate online, and we'd love to have you get involved in our campaign. I really want to thank you for coming again. I hope to see you on the campaign trail. I finally got 30 minutes to sit down and kind of relax and talk to you guys. We were at the Salt Bowl this past weekend. We'll be out doing Labor Day activities this coming weekend, and hope to see you there. Thanks so much.